Yes? He has something to say to you.
You mean you understand what he says when he speaks to you?
To hear, one has only to listen.
Bye, Billy.
To hear, one only has to listen. My friend, when you are seeking and you have your own specific agenda, then you are not listening at all. That is what happens in our special relationships when we are seeking through a person, place, or thing for our happiness backpack to be filled. And we know, my friends, if you have watched any of these videos, what happens when we attempt to have our happiness backpack filled outside of us. Welcome back to another episode of Through the Lens with your favorite trauma coach and elf, Ashley. Today we are going on a trip with the Gremlins. So strap yourself in because we are covering all things special relationships, seeking salvation outside of ourselves, and ultimately giving away that happiness backpack and then seeing what happens. Okay, Gremlins. The relationship with Gizmo that Billy has is that of a special relationship. We see it in the difference between how Mr. Wang is able to meet Gizmo's needs. Gizmo appears to be happy versus how Billy does. So Mr. Wang has him kept in a box where he needs to be kept in order to keep everyone safe because he's not seeking salvation in Gizmo. He's respecting him, he's honoring him, but he is not seeking his happiness or peace through the cuteness and the love of Gizmo. But we see Billy is. Immediately, Billy makes him a bed and he feeds him all this food and he really builds that external relationship of seeking salvation in Gizmo. Is he consciously doing this? No, we're never consciously doing this usually. It's always subconsciously that we have this relationship where we're seeking something in that person in order to fill ourselves, which is what I talk about, filling your happiness backpack. So at one point early on in the movie, Billy's dad shares that Gizmo and all of his extras that are coming out of him can be the replacement for dogs, which is a very interesting statement. And I will have videos later on this in regards to dogs being, I think, one of the most common special relationships, love relationships in the US. Everybody has a dog. Everybody is seeking special love through their dog. We will talk more about that later, but essentially that shows us in a nutshell what Gizmo is. Gizmo is this external relationship that is meant to provide the love we are all seeking, but the problem is you are seeking it through ego love instead of the unconditional love which you already are, which is an extension instead of found in someone else, just like your happiness backpack. You cannot fill it outside of yourself. Instead, it is already full within, and you need to remember that because it has never gone away. But when you constantly believe that you have already lost your happiness backpack and need to seek it outside of yourself is when you get into situations like this. Let's be honest, if Gizmo was being respected and not seeking things from him, then he would have never got water spilt on him. He would have never been placed on display. His friends would have never been fed food, but instead they were treated as these little equals in a way, but only because Billy was seeking what he wasn't providing with himself, so he was projecting it out on Gizmo, giving him the love that he wished his father gave him, and so that in turn he felt as though he was receiving it because your subconscious doesn't know any different. But the problem is it was at the level of the ego. The main problem is that Gizmo came with 3 rules. No, don't give him water at all. Don't feed him after midnight and don't expose him to bright light or sunlight. He will die. But to me, that immediately shows that we are seeking unconditional love in Gizmo, but the problem is there's conditions on him. So it tells you right there that Gizmo is a representation of the ego because he has conditions. It is not unconditional love, and you must meet these conditions or it goes into the state of fear and pain and separation and sacrifice and suffering if you don't make sure to meet all of the conditions. And that is what we see, is that Gizmo, this cute, loving little thing, which I think is a reason why later Furbies became so popular. We all wanted a Gizmo. Everybody wanted that Gizmo until we did not. Because Gizmo can never provide you what you are actually seeking. And if you don't follow the 3 rules, it actually can backfire. And we see in a very exaggerated form of how special relationships always will disappoint in the end, because you can never fully meet their conditions because the conditions are unrealistic, especially when you are attempting to seek in them. You can't ever follow the conditions. And we see that with all the gremlins, because Gizmo is not a gremlin, I guess. It's the evil ones that are gremlins that come out and they multiply and they make conscious decisions of wanting to be evil and take over and harm people and do all of this bad within, but it came from something good. Isn't that kind of interesting? But again, because Gizmo is neither. He is what value you place on him. And at any moment when you place a value outside of yourself, it can shift in a snap. And we see that all of the time in our special relationships with disappointment. I mean, you get married, you love someone, and the divorce rate is through the roof because that special relationship never fulfilled what you were actually seeking. And in a snap, it shifted. If at one moment you can love someone and at the next moment you can hate them, did you really ever have either for them? That's the true question. Is this all because Gizmo is bad? No. Is this all because Gizmo is good? No. It, again, is all about the value that we have placed on Gizmo, and the reality is that there is no value. It is valueless, but you creating a value can backfire on you, my friend. I have a question for you. Look at your current relationships in your life and ask yourself, what am I seeking in this relationship? What rules have I created that has made this a conditional relationship? And also, ultimately, what is the false value I've created in this relationship? And really get honest with yourself of how you are able to instead fill your own happiness backpack instead of relying on this relationship to do so. Because it can't. If you've watched any of my videos, you know it can't, my friend, and it never will be able to. Billy created a false value for Gizmo and didn't follow Gizmo's rules. Therefore, he was running from instead of filling the happiness backpack that Billy was hoping Gizmo would fill. Instead, it was the complete opposite. That is what Billy experienced, because in the end, Gizmo cannot fill his happiness backpack. And Mr. Wang says, Gizmo will be waiting for you when you're ready. And I would guess that is when Billy has realized that nothing outside of him can fill his happiness backpack, and instead sees Gizmo as an opportunity to extend love through, unconditional love that is, instead of seeking conditional love within. And in really looking at that relationship as a relationship that is providing him something instead of a relationship that he is providing himself through. That was today's Through the Lens, my friend. All things Gremlins. Oh, I hope you had an amazing trip today with the Gremlins and with your favorite trauma coach, Ashley. As always, make sure to like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you can stay up to date on the latest episodes. And as always, my friend, remember you are worth it and have an amazing holiday season. Bye-bye.